Ah, yes, 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 we are here. Hello, lovely people. We hope you are doing well this fine evening. Welcome to what is the marquee event, if I do say so myself, of the Northern Irish Game Dev Network Spring Festival 2021. We hope that you are wonderful and that you are doing great this very dark, cloudy, and moody evening in Derry. But we hope we find you well all the same. I am Johnny Cullen. I am your host. I am the editor of Play Diaries, a website that focuses on telling interesting, unique, and compelling stories about games and the people behind them. And joining me tonight, or this afternoon where she is, New York, right?
Yeah.
Alanna Linayre of Toadhouse Games and Team Toadhouse. Team Toadhouse and Toadhouse Games are at the intersection of games and mental health. We're going to delve all into that over the course of the next hour or so. We're going to talk about what they've got cooking as well. No pun intended. Um, with Call Me Cera, good looking home cooking, and the vignettes they've got coming up with that, and other things as well. But I am known to be a very hard-nosed journalist, first and foremost. So I must ask, Alanna, this is probably going to be the hardest question I'm going to ask you all evening.
Yes.
How are you?
I know you're being facetious, but that's a very difficult question to ask, isn't it?
It is, and it can be somewhat of a serious question as well, because like I say it facetiously, jokingly, but it is a very sort of, it can be a very serious question as well, especially during these times as well.
Right. Like I even have it in Call Me Sarah. There's a line where she meets her therapist for the first time, and it's something like "How are you?" or "How's it going?" And she has an inner monologue of like, "Right, well, do I tell the truth because she's the therapist, or do I go my standard? Oh yeah, everything's great. I am loving life. Everything's wonderful. That's why I'm here."
Oh God, you have to love asking that question in normal times, but especially in a pandemic.
Right? I actually avoid asking that question. What I ask is, how's your day going? Because then at least they can
Oh,
think over their day and they can like talk about that one, what they did that day. So I'll be like, oh, how's the day going? And they'll be like, oh, it's fine. I went grocery shopping. And that's a lot lighter than like, so how are you? And then you can see the existential crisis behind their eyes. I'm like,
yeah.
not great, but do I tell you that?
Yeah, I'm not doing great, but I'm just sort of trying to sort of get on with the process of living and all that there in the middle of a
Right.
pandemic. It's fun. It's fun. It's a very
Yeah.
fun thing to do. Anyway, I forgot to mention as well, by the way, for those watching, if you're in the NI Game Dev Network Discord, feel free to ask us questions. We will answer them close to towards the end. We will also be taking questions from Twitch chat as well. So please, by all means, drop us a comment or a question in chat or on the NIGDN Discord. While I get this retweeted on my phone because I am a bona fide moron. Right,
No, you're not.
you're
Be
sweet.
kind to yourself. Can we talk about, instead of how I am, can we talk about what I'm drinking?
Oh, what are you drinking? Okay, what are you drinking?
Because no one, see, I'm in New York right now, and I was raised in both Burr County Offaly and New York. So I was raised in a very Irish town, but I've since left that Irish town. So I get so excited when I can talk to Irish people because I can say things like I don't have to explain myself. So I'm drinking berries. I'm drinking berries with cream and sugar. And you know what that is, and that excites me. But because it's so dang hot today, I have like, I don't know if you can see, but so much ice in this cup that I am quite concerned that I'm accidentally going to like die choking on an ice cube during this conversation. So if I fall to the floor, you'll know that I have died via ice cube.
Oh God. Be sure to not let anyone from the Republic see you with ice in a Barry's teeth. They might actually kick off.
I know. I'm sorry. It's just so hot today.
I don't blame you. Like, if it was me, I'd be fine with it. But people are just fickle, let's say. But
I know.
you love to see the Irish just sort of go over tea. Anyway,
I have to add the ice in order to show the Americans this cup is a representation of me. It's the Irish, and then the ice is the American side of me. I need both.
So, let's break off from tea, shall we? And potentially sort of upsetting at least God knows how many people down south across the border.
Let's do it. I love upsetting people. What do we do?
We're all good for upsetting the south. Anyway, let's start off by how you first got into games. Not necessarily getting into the games industry, but how you first started really getting into games, like playing them, what first interested you about them, basically.
Well, I think we all kind of everyone of our age group kind of grew up with games just existing alongside of us. So we all have a story of like, we got our first game console, or we played this arcade game or whatever like that. And I have a bunch of stories like that. But I think the common thread among all of my childhood game experiences is that video games were for boys. And so I was always the brains in the room because I wasn't allowed to touch the controller, being a woman or being a girl. So, they would be playing and they couldn't figure out a puzzle, or they couldn't figure out where to find the flying cap in Mario 64. They couldn't figure out where the secret path was. And I'd just be analyzing the whole thing. And so I'd tell them what to do and where to go. And that was my role in the video game thing until we finally got an N64 when I was in about, I was about 10, I think. 9 or 10, maybe 8, 9, 10, like around that, like... later childhood, and that had 2 controllers. So all of a sudden I was allowed to play video games. We got 2 controllers for that one, so I was allowed to play. But I would stay over at my granny's house every summer, in Offaly. And she had a Sega Genesis because my mom's the eldest of 6, so my uncles at the time were teenagers. So they had a Sega, and so while they were at work, I'd play Sega, and they had this Mickey game. And it's not available in the United States. It's only available over in Europe. So I came back home to New York and I wanted to play this Mickey game, and I tried to find it and I couldn't find it, and it's such a tragedy. But so the Mickey game was for Granny's house, and then Sonic and Mario was for here, and then your one down the road, the neighbors down the road had a PlayStation 1 and they had Spyro. So Spyro's there. So it's kind of like, depending on where I am, depended on the games, but I was never actually the one playing the game until I was like 11 or 12, because it was a boys thing. I wasn't allowed to.
I think I know what that Mickey game was.
It's the one, the first round, Steamboat Willie, and you go through the whole thing and it's black and white. Do you know it?
I think it's the cover where Mickey's just sort of running through a wall or something, is it?
Think so, like a almost like a Kool-Aid Man burst through, I think.
Yeah. I think that's the one I'm thinking of. I think that's the one I'm thinking of, but I'm not sure.
It's a fun game. It's such a fun game. Oh, hours and hours. That and watching Space Jam. That's all I did that summer.
I think that's pretty much what everyone did that summer. Just basically watch Space Jam and just go nuts from there.
Yeah.
So, fun times. So 2011. 10 years ago, let's rewind back to 2011. This is when you start streaming.
Yes.
Why did you start streaming? Like, what sort of got you into streaming?
Well, I was in my first apartment and I was living alone, and my first apartment was 10 foot by 10 foot, so 100 square feet. You can convert that. I don't know what that is. I can do temperatures. I don't know how to convert feet. So it was a very, very small apartment, and I would be very bored, and I'd basically go to work and come home and go to work and come home, and I kind of wanted to hang out, but all my friends were off in college. So streaming was kind of like a virtual way to sit on the couch, like that couch co-op experience that I had growing up, where I would be sitting on the couch and everyone would be playing games. It was kind of like that, except I was the one playing the game. So I'd have my virtual room and all my virtual friends on the virtual couch with me, and we'd play the games together. And I got rather good, and I got a bit of a following. Not, anything super impressive, but to be alone in a studio apartment in New York and have 250 people watching you play games, it's kind of interesting, and then be chatting along with them. So it staved off loneliness, and it gave me something to do after work that was more exciting than just waitressing.
Like, can you remember what games you were playing at the time?
The most popular game that I played was the first South Park game. That's kind of when my numbers went up. So in the
Was
first
that
South
the Stick of Truth or the actual first one?
no, Stick of Truth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Stick of Truth, the RPG one. I think they got a kick out of like this wholesome looking girl just cursing up a storm. And that's also where the name Toadhouse came from, because they'd be rowdy in chat. And I forget what jokes they were making, but one day they were making all these rowdy jokes, and I wanted to just put them in the doghouse. But my puppy at the time, she's passed now, but she's like the most angelic, sweet little thing. And I was like, I'm not putting you in the doghouse with my dog. She's too good for all y'all. So here's what I'm going to do. And I looked around the room, and my Toad plushie's over there, but it was over there. And I saw that. I was like, right, Toad. You're all going into the Toad house. That's it. Off with you. Off. But they all enjoyed it. And so they made it like a virtual arcade room, and they put in virtual bean bags. You know, it's all imagination, but still they're like, oh, did you hear today we made cookies in the Toad house, and today we got bean bags in the Toad house. And they made it cooler than my actual chats. And then we were all in the Toad house. And when I was naming my studio, I said, well, what better name than that?
The fantasy actually became a much better reality. You love to see it. That was literally my next question, because then it evolved from that instance of the chat where the chat was being sort of rowdy to sort of becoming this sort of massive thing. And this, like, you just mentioned the story, like, that was sort of what I was looking to fish out, but like, it sort of aptly sums up what Toadhouse seems to be anyway, just sort of rowdiness with a sort of TLC element to it as well.
Well, I think the difference between us and most other wholesome self-care communities is that I don't shy away from negative feelings. Like a lot of places, if they're new to the community and they say something slightly negative, or they say they're upset, or anything that's not just happy, happy, happy all the time, they start to apologize. I go, no. Feelings aren't bad. They're just information. If you're feeling sad today, by all means, you know, if you're going to say something that might be triggering to others, be kind and put it under spoiler marks. But beyond that, you do you. If you're not feeling well today, don't fake happy on our account. You don't need to do that here. So it's you're allowed to be rowdy, you're allowed to be sad, you're allowed to be however you are. And none of it's bad. And that, in my opinion, is better self-care and better positivity than whatever some other, not all of them, but some other places, because you know, you join other places to see how they're doing it for, you know, inspiration, ideas sometimes. And I'm looking around some of these communities like, goodness, is everyone drinking Kool-Aid here? Is everyone okay? There's a lot of rainbows going on in this room, and I don't know if it's all real.
All sunshine and rainbows.
Right. You're allowed to be upset. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Is no one upset about this?
You're allowed to be upset outside of a pandemic.
Yeah, you're allowed to be upset just on a Tuesday. Like, you're allowed to be upset. And I feel like it's more harmful to be like, no. You're not allowed to talk about this here. You're not allowed. You know, positivity only. It's why we're humans. We're, you know, more than just happiness. I don't like it, so...
We're flawed vessels.
Yeah. Meat bags.
Meat bags. That's flawed meat bags. That's a good one. I'm stealing that. So we've ascertained the story of how sort of Toadhouse came to be in terms of establishing that sort of community. What about how you first got into the game dev side of things? Because it's a bit of a transition anyway, going from streamer to game dev anyway. And talk to me about your thought process on what made you want to sort of get into that sort of area of the industry anyway.
So the community came first, as you said, and I was an actor in New York for many years. I've been an actor since I was 12. I got my first acting paycheck when I was like 12 or 13. But when you start something, when you're so young, you kind of, oh, 1 second. Pardon me. Someone's at the door.
Please stand by. The Fallout logo is popping.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
Maintenance is coming. My partner is coming to the store. Give me 1 second.
No, it's fine.
Our burner on our gas stove's broken, and I think maintenance is coming by to say it. Sorry about that, everyone. Right. So, yay, pandemic stuff. what were we saying? Oh, right, the transition.
Yeah.
So, I was an actor my whole life, and then I got into a car accident in my mid-20s, and I had a few months where I couldn't really do much else other than think. And when I was sitting there and thinking, I realized, oh wait, maybe I don't enjoy doing this as much, and maybe I'm doing it out of habit. So instead of continuing the habit, I figured, well, if I had to do something else, if I couldn't be an actor anymore, then what would I do? And I went through all my hobbies, obviously streaming and video games is one of them, and I went through everything I could possibly do, and do I go back to school and whatever. And I fell on like, well, let me try my hand at making games. That sounds interesting. So I started to make smaller games, and I kind of used my acting skills as like a bargaining chip to learn more about game dev. So I was friends with the Meatly, he goes by online, and he's the dev behind Bendy and the Ink Machine. And I said, like, Bendy and Ink Machine originally was just a demo that was made over a weekend. Like, it wasn't meant to be this big successful game. And in the beginning of that, before it kind of became very successful, he needed a voice actor, and he asked me because he knew I did it, and I was like, yeah, I'd be happy to do some lines for you for free, and I'm happy to do that. Can I like play test? So I tried to be like, right, I'll do the acting bit if I can do some of the game dev stuff, you know what I mean? And then take my acting skills and be like, well, I'll help you with the whatever these things are, if you teach me about this, if you help me with this, that type of deal. So I kind of got my teeth wet there, or sharpened my teeth there. And then Bendy blew up overnight. And that was a crash course, because then Rooster Teeth came in, and Rooster Teeth was the ones who brought Bendy to console. So we went from this like game jam thing to I learned how to deal with overnight success. I learned how to deal with scrutiny. I learned to deal with a lot of eyes on you. I learned how to deal with business relations. I learned how to deal with big corporations and console porting, dealing with Rooster Teeth, dealing with like it was a year's worth of crash course in game dev and biz dev. And then at the end of it, I kind of stepped away for a month, and it was like, right, well, that was a roller coaster. Do I enjoy it though? And what I pulled away from it is that there's a lot of toxicity in the game industry, so I didn't want any of that nonsense. But I genuinely enjoy writing stories and creating games. So I figured if I could make my own studio that was anti-crunch, that was not this toxic positivity, but a proper positivity that paid people well, that treated people well, all the bad things that I saw in that year. Not saying Rooster Teeth or Bendy just them, but like, you know, I was exposed to a lot of it, so I don't want to point fingers, but
no.
I took all the bad and I said, well, how do I make a game studio and make good games without all the stuff that I don't like? And what I've determined is that I've got a really good moral compass. So if I kind of do what feels right, most of the time I'll land in the right area, even though I don't know what I'm doing. So educated guesses and landing in the right area and kind of following my gut. And I've made so many mistakes because of that, but at least they're mistakes I feel proud standing behind, you know. So between that, now I'm gaining success, and I have a successful game out, and we have more to come, and it's become bigger than, well, I had hoped it was, you know, going to grow bigger, but it's working. So whatever I'm doing is working. So I'm kind of just going with that for now.
Just sort of going with the flow of everything.
Yeah.
How does sort of that moral compass sort of drive you in terms of day-to-day stuff? Not just necessarily with, you know, game development stuff or even just Toadhouse, but life in general. Like, to just give you an idea of what you are, who you are as a character and as a person.
I find that many people, there's like, so something happens and then you react, right? And it's a muscle you have to train, but there's like a pause there that you can take, and then you can decide how you want to react and what type of person you want to be. So I find a lot of people, their pause is very tiny, if non-existent. So I work on making that pause as big as possible. So if something happens, like someone cuts me off in traffic, or someone says something rude to me, or someone tells me they're even something benign, like they're going to be late on a deadline or something, right? Instead of reacting and having this emotional outburst or getting angry or something like that, I do my best to, pardon my voice, I do my best to take a pause and then decide what action I want to take. Like what type of person do I want to be, and what type of action does that person take? So sometimes it's not even how I want to do it, and it's not like what my gut's telling me. Sometimes I'm so confused and it feels so emotionally charged that I go, right, well, the person that I want to be, how would she handle this situation? Because I want to get petty and ugly right here, and I know that petty and ugly has never served me right. So I want to punch this person in the face. Can't do that. How does the best person of me handle it? And if by training that, the time that you have to think expands. And so in your day-to-day life, whether it's someone cutting you in line at the grocery store, or a person, like a contractor you hired to do the job, and then something goes wrong, or something doesn't go according to plan, as is c'est la vie. It allows you to kind of like have more peace and be able to stand behind your actions and your words better, because you've trained yourself to give yourself so much mental time to consider your options and go with the one you feel best about.
I think the thing that really stands out there is the phrase kill them with kindness, because it's something that when I recorded this past season of my favorite game, Kitty Crawford actually mentioned to me, and I know Kitty's here in the chat, and because I'm looking at chat right now, and it's she's here anyway, and that's very prominent to me anyways, in terms of what you're saying. Kill them with kindness. If you can't literally kill them, just kill them with kindness.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like you feel better that way. Like my mother, I had to teach this to myself, because my mother's not. My mother is petty and holds a grudge like nobody's business. And just the other day, she lives in this apartment complex, and the best parking's out front. But sure, I'm young and I'm fit and I don't mind walking. So it's like not that far. It's maybe like another 6 cars down. Instead of the best spot, I took 6 cars down. And she gave out to me. And I said, well, I don't live here, and I'm going to be here all day, so I'm going to let that spot be taken by someone who lives here. I don't mind walking an extra 6 cars. And she goes, well, no one else does that, and you shouldn't do that because they don't do that. And I was like, Mommy, I'm not going to let the actions of others determine how I act. I'm going to act how I want to act, and I feel like this is a good thing to do. I'm doing a good deed, so let me feel good about it. I want to do this. This is who I am, and they can do whatever they want. They can be rude. They can curse me out for not parking there. But I did what I want to do. So, sorry you're upset about it, and sorry you have to walk another 6 feet. I can drop you off at the front door, Mommy, and meet you upstairs, but like, I'm not letting other people determine how I behave.
There's something so you say that's seriously petty, but there's also something so very wholesome and traditionally Irish about that. Honestly, it is, and I'm actually gonna be frank and honest here. A little bit of your Irish was coming out and saying that.
My partner says my Irish comes out when I'm dealing with my mother, when I'm talking about my mother, when I'm drunk, and when I'm angry. He can tell that he's in trouble when my accent slips, because then he can tell that I'm not joke angry. I'm actually angry.
So, right, moving on. How have you sort of had to deal with the importance of both? So let's sort of clarify the situation here in terms of Toadhouse. Toadhouse Games is the development studio. Team Toadhouse is the sort of games and mental health sort of haven that Alanna founded back in her streaming days. Now, there's obviously the difference there. So, all the same, how have you sort of managed to find both groups' identities?
Oh goodness. I honestly sat down for a day and I was like, right, even I'm confused. So let's write mission statements for each and figure out what the difference is.
Yep.
And that's how I did it. It was very contrived. I sat down and I was like, well, I have these things because they grew organically, but when things grow organically, it can get messy. So I legit sat down for an afternoon and came up with mission statements for both and figured out a way to explain it better than I was. So if you think about Team Toadhouse, that's the LLC, that's the business, and that's the umbrella. And the game studio is a branch of that umbrella. And then everything we do, the self-care consulting is a branch, the streaming is a branch. So Team Toadhouse is the big one. And then we also happen to make games and do all these other things. But because the game studio is so unique and requires basically its own company, if you will, it was easiest to kind of just like keep that separate. Also, to have the word games in your studio title is a lot more clear when you're asking for funding and such than like, we're Team Toadhouse. I kept on getting like, this is Toadhouse Studio, this is Team Toadhouse Games, this is Team Toadhouse Studio Games. And I was like, right, well, I'm going to come up with something because this is chaotic. So it kind of came from needing funding. In September, we were applying for funding. We didn't get any, but that's on me. Well, partially on me. Some of it was mistakes on my part. Some of it was things out of my control. But during that, I realized how convoluted the whole thing was. And so I separated them and made it as clear as I possibly could. So Team Toadhouse is the community and the streaming and the events. We're having a game jam coming up, all of that stuff. And then the literal game development and game creation is Toadhouse Games.
Bring my questions back up because I've actually just gone on to play Diaries. I am everywhere and nowhere.
I'm still like from the maintenance person coming in. That threw me off.
Fair enough. I think we're all sort of losing our way a little bit today.
Yeah. They weren't supposed to come until much later. I was like, who are you? Why are you coming in my house? It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. We got this. We got this. We got this. Right. So, we'll talk about Toadhouse Games and what you guys are doing in a little bit. But like in terms of Team Toadhouse, how important was it for you to sort of help establish that sort of haven, that sort of hangout for people to come together and talk about games, mental health, and actually not mask the sort of bad feelings, like actually openly embrace the bad feelings and all, in terms of everything is not sunshine, rainbows, and forgive the Irish stereotype I'm about to give here, literal gold at the end of the rainbow.
Leprechauns.
But more literally what I am looking at my window outside, like right now, dark grey clouds and just sad feelings and just sort of, there's nothing I can do about that, but actually embrace them rather than sort of hide them.
I think it's two parts. It's what I saw that year when I was working, or the 2 years or so that I was working on Bendy and working with the Bendy team, and I knew it was desperately needed. And I've been studying because, you know, I've been in therapy for over a decade and I've got mental illnesses. So I, through lived experience and through studying it for my own benefit, I actually do know quite a lot. And I'm not saying that I'm a therapist or an expert, but I know more than your average person. And I feel like I know it well enough that I can, at least through lived experience stories, share that knowledge and help others via that. But the other part of it is my big secret when it comes to anything that I do, whether it's the games I make, what I tweet, the things that the haven, any of it. It's what I need in the moment. So it might sound really profound when I tweet something or profound when I do something or when I create something. But quite literally, it's I step out of myself and I go, right, well, I wish someone would tell me that I look pretty today and I need to have a good day. And they hope I have a great Monday. And so I tweet that. and I go, "You look beautiful today. I hope you have a wonderful day." I literally make what I need for myself. So I am my own best friend, parent, everything. And I give myself what I wish others would give me.
Hmm.
And the great thing about that is that we're all human, and as unique as we are individually, we're not all that unique with our lived experiences and with our emotions.
Hmm.
Like suffering is suffering, emotion's emotion, whether it's from something as terrible as what's going on in Palestine to like a high schooler in going through their exams, and like no matter what the degree, whether it's very minimal and common or something as tragic as a worldwide thing, the emotions are the same.
Hmm.
So everyone can relate to the emotion of it. So by tweeting what I need, it is very likely that someone else needs to hear that. I'm not so unique that I'm the only one in the world feeling this way. And so by creating games that I need, by saying what I need, by creating the place I need, by making the rules as I need them, and by tweeting out what I need, I'm actually helping everyone else who's very much like me.
Um, let's delve into sort of mental health as a whole then, within games.
Mm,
Um, Games will cover mental health aspects for good and bad because there are for every one instance of good mental health representation, there's always at least 5 or 6 bad ones. At least
true.
certainly from my experience, anyway.
Mm,
But and I'm sort of going to give a plug here. On Saturday, I gave a talk about games and mental health, and how at the same time games have been a massive, sort of helping, sort of warm hug, or
mm,
to give it another example to what Alanna just drank out of, a cup of tea. Um, and basically, they've been there for us in numerous ways, like through, like you said, with grief, bad events in the world, like Palestine, like the pandemic and stuff like that. There, I got numerous references to Animal Crossing and how it's helped them during the pandemic, and I just sort of want to get an idea of sort of, it's a two-part question, I guess. A sort of one, how games can sort of help people's mental health, and two, how you sort of feel the representation of mental health within games in terms of narrative and stuff like that there has been from your point of view anyway.
okay. Um, I think when most people answer a question like that, they're going to go via like the clinical, like, oh, well, we need representation so that people can learn about depression or whatever. But I don't really approach it that way. I
Hmm.
find that most games that have mental health as a theme are made for people without mental illness.
Hmm.
So they're meant to make you like a neurotypical healthy person experience what it's like to have an illness so that they can be put in the shoes and then they can comprehend it
Hmm.
better. But that's not who I make games for. Like I said, I make games for people like me.
Hmm.
So I make games with mentally ill people in mind.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess that is one way to do it. I'm not saying that what they're doing is wrong
No.
and they should continue. That's not me. I think that most humans want to feel understood and loved more than above anything else. And to see yourself truly, respectfully, and authentically in media, whether it's a game or otherwise, feels really good.
Hmm.
Like teenagers love music because they're going through all this emotion and they don't have the words for it.
Hmm.
And then they find this song that feels like they wrote it. That feels like it was written for them, by them, about them.
Hmm.
And it becomes their favorite song. They become obsessed. They go to the concert. Like it, that feeling doesn't end when you're a teenager. It just gets a bit more complicated.
Hmm.
So to create a game where mental illness is respectfully shown, but not in a way like Sasuna showed people who don't have schizophrenia what it's like to be schizophrenic in a way, right? Because of the visions and the hallucinations and such. Or I think it was schizophrenia they were doing. Forgive me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
Psychosis,
but
anyway.
psychosis, yeah, let's go with that. That's better. Psychosis. Um, I feel like, see, even it's difficult because to say these things, like to have the words, it's very difficult, which is why I make the games, because then I can make the experience and that's easier. It's also why I don't tweet about certain things, because it's not enough characters to like say what I mean. But I try to role model the behavior I wish to see in the world in my games, and then I want people who are like me to use my games to express themselves. So it would mean a lot to me if someone played my game, felt seen, and then made their friend play it, saying, so you know how I XYZ? Play this game. She has what I have. This is what it looks like. And see how her friend handles that. That's what I need from you. And that would make me feel really good. And I want it to be like an extension of our vocabulary and our self-expression. Because I feel like as important as it is to show people who aren't in it what it's like for general awareness, we need games too. And I would love for games and media to allow me to feel and be more understood by more people, especially with mental illnesses that are extremely misunderstood, like bipolar disorder. So few people actually know what it is. They think that it's you're angry in the morning, you're happy in the afternoon, and then you're sad in the evening, and it's not like that at all. And a lot of that has to do with Hollywood not representing it properly for years, and for using mental illness as like the go-to, oh, the killer is just mentally ill and look at the dark and the so I want to veer away from that, but without triggering people. So make a game where they can see themselves, not be triggered by it, and then hopefully use it as an extension of their self-expression when it comes to their friends, their family, and themselves.
I think the way you sort of put it like that, it made me think of Modern Love and the episode with Anne Hathaway. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
I haven't. Tell me.
Okay. She has bipolar, and her character, well, her character has bipolar anyway, and it sort of goes through the sort of happy. I don't want to speak too out of turn, because obviously I don't know about bipolar, I don't know about BPD and stuff like that there, so I don't want to go on too much further on it. But basically, I don't know sort of how it would fit with the sort of description of it. Like, I personally enjoyed watching that episode because I'm a sappy romantic. But that doesn't necessarily mean it was a great representation of bipolar, BPD, and stuff like that. I know they're separate, but like, that's sort of my point. That sort of Hollywood sort of representation of these sorts of mental health illnesses, like, the one bad example that I can think of, at least in relation to me, is Big Bang Theory. Big Bang Theory for me is,
oh, I hate that show.
Like, like Sheldon for me. If I ramble, if I rant, we'll be here all day. So no. But
You're preaching to the choir. I agree.
I get it though. I get it. I absolutely get it. And I love the music comparison you made as well, because now we've just been like, we're still sort of emotional about things. It's just now we've basically moved on from My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy to The National and Hammock, basically.
Yeah. I feel like people forget that growing up doesn't mean you don't become human. You still enjoy things. You still feel your feelings. It's just there's different things that, like, as you go through life, you've got more perspective. So you need something more nuanced. But we're also very tired, so we need something that's easily digestible. And sometimes just having tropes like, oh, the killer is mentally ill is just an easy trope. But unfortunately, when you use tropes that real people have and then they're inaccurately represent, like, it just makes it more complicated, because you can say it's harmless, right? Oh, it's fictional, right? It's just media. But here's how it plays. So everyone watches, let's say there's a huge show and one of the main character has bipolar disorder, but it's not done properly. It's done like she goes off the rails and she's irresponsible for her actions and she is just hot and cold, hot and cold. That's not what it is, but let's say that's the character in America's Next huge show or whatever, and so everyone's watching it. And so then I have a low swing day and I go into work and I'm just not able to keep up, and I'm sat down and they go, we have to write you up because, you know, you're not here and you're obviously out of it, or worse, I'm manic and I'm talking at a mile a minute and I'm missing my words and no one can understand me. And I'm cutting people off because they're not talking fast enough for my brain to like follow them. And they sit me down and go like, you know, you're coming off as rude or whatever, what's going on? It would be really nice to be able to say, oh, my apologies, I didn't realize I have bipolar disorder and I'm manic today. Here's what I need. I need to be in the back away from people because, you know, I don't want to be rude. I don't mean to come off that way. It's just my mind's racing. But let's say this huge Hollywood show is very popular. I say I'm manic and I have bipolar disorder. All of a sudden, that comes with a lot of stuff from that show. That manager watched that show, loved that show. So now they think that I'm going to be hot cold. They think I'm going to shoot up a school. They think I'm going to do all these things that the main character in that thing, because that's the only time they saw that representation. Same with anything. Like, there's many towns in the United States where there's no black people. And so the only representation they have is what they watch on telly. So if the show that they watch on telly, the black people are all thugs, and then they see a black person in real life,
they're just gonna misconstrue them as a black thug.
Right, exactly. It's ignorant, but also you see where they've gotten that from. So we, as people who create media, have a responsibility to ensure that we're not doing such it's not harmless. It's harmful. Like, that's what we're doing.
No, definitely. Out of curiosity, like, is there any other games that you think have done that sort of depiction of mental health well, at least?
My favorite example of, my two favorite examples of bipolar in games, or not in games, in media, I can't think of a game with bipolar, is Please Like Me, which is an Australian sitcom. Very funny. The mother's got bipolar disorder, done extremely well. Love that show. I will rewatch it easily if anyone wants to watch it. And of course, Carrie Fisher and all her stand-up, because she legit had bipolar disorder and she would just talk about it. And it made me feel so much better when I was diagnosed, because that's like one of the big bads, you know, like depression's almost like everyone's got. Not that I shouldn't say that, but you know, like that's common enough that it doesn't feel big, bad, and scary. But schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, borderline, like the big bad scary ones, as they show them in our media, when you get that diagnosis, you're like, oh shoot, am I going to be like the guy in that movie? That's terrifying. And then to watch Carrie Fisher go on about it, it's like, oh shoot, I did that too, but she's laughing about it, so it's okay.
Like she's fully openly embracing, like, hi, I'm bipolar, and she actually makes fun of it, but like in a sort of genuinely wonderful, non-harmful way.
I like, there's two things that come to mind with her. So in one of her books, her character, who has bipolar disorder, she is repaving her patio at 2 a.m. And I've done something similar, and I was called mental for it. Little did they know they weren't exactly off the mark with that one, but it was kind of rude to call me mental for it, but I mean, not inaccurate, I guess. But she did it, and so like at the time I felt kind of ashamed, because it was pointed to as like well, you did this, therefore that's a symptom, therefore that's how we got this diagnosis. And then I was reading the book and I was like, for me it was pulling up the linoleum from my kitchen, but for her it was paving. But we were both doing home improvement at 2 a.m, major like construction we had no business doing at 2 a.m, so it made me feel less ashamed about it, which was brilliant. And then the other thing is, I love Carrie Fisher because she was an advocate through and through. She was doing an interview in the 90s on one of her friend's talk shows. And her friend mentioned, because at the time she was getting electroshock therapy, which is reserved for when you're so depressed you can't get out of that valley. So but it's not, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, what is showed in Hollywood. It's got a very bad PR campaign. So her friend made a joke about like, oh, you don't want to be too mentally ill, otherwise they'll like, and like as if electric. And Carrie said, no, stop, don't do that, because people are already scared of getting it, and honestly, I got it and it saved my life, so don't make fun of that. That's not okay. So she knew what was okay to be made fun of, and then she knew what was a stigma and what you shouldn't make fun of. And I strive for that clarity that she had. I love that. But as for games, I think PTSD in Final Fantasy VII, I think Cloud and his PTSD flashbacks are fairly on the mark.
Oh, fair. I mean, not that no one's asking, but at least for me, I would say for me, the closest that's come to the sort of four big tenets for me: depression, anxiety, loneliness, and autism. Although autism's more of a neurodiverse sort of type thing than mental illness, but I'll add that. For me, the few games that sort of come to mind, at least in terms of autism anyway, is Watch Dogs 2. Now, Watch Dogs 2 has this character named Josh, and I adore Ubisoft Montreal's representation of Josh, because he's not my per se representation of autism, but the way Ubisoft Montreal depict him in the game is very nondescript, as in they don't make it a big deal. They don't make it a big massive deal. He's just part of the crew. Like, it's mentioned once or twice, but they don't make a big deal of it. They just see Josh, their own person. I love that. And there's other characters that do autism or hint at autism that don't do very well, that I won't name. but I love what Ubisoft did with Watch Dogs 2. I think it was great. And in terms of something like loneliness and stuff like that, there, I have to give a special shout out in terms of loneliness anyway. Sea of Solitude. I love Sea of Solitude because I think for me it's the closest thing that depicts loneliness in such a way that really resonated with me in terms of how I deal with that sort of loneliness. Because like, loneliness is more of a sort of, it's not a mental illness per se, it's more of a sort of, what's the word? Can't think of the word. Yeah, you know what I mean anyway.
I do.
And it's the closest thing that's come to sort of giving me that sort of guidance on mental health or loneliness that that sort of ties in with me. And I adore Sea of Solitude, and I still need to buy it on Switch though, the director's cut.
Yeah.
I still need to play it. But yeah, what Yomei did with that game is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And obviously as well, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Life is Strange as well, especially at least the first Life is Strange game.
Yes.
Oh my god, we won't mention anything specific because triggers and stuff like that there.
Yes.
But at the end of episode 2 is
yes.
absolutely one of the single greatest scenes in terms of mental health depiction in games. Like for me, like it's just up there.
Life is Strange did such a wonderful thing. I didn't realize how impactful Life is Strange was, and I didn't accidentally stream it, but I streamed it without knowing what I was getting into. I had to cut the stream short.
Oh.
I got midway stream and I was just like, yeah, I'm not doing this live in front of all y'all. Bye.
Oh no. Oh no. I mean, fair. Totally fair, but like, oh no. Just finding that out in the middle of the stream is like, oh no. I mean, but totally fair though.
Yeah, I was getting through it. I was like, oh, I see where this is going. I'm signing off and finishing the scene on my own. I'm not having this on camera. Thanks.
Oh god. Yeah, no, totally fair. Totally fair. But yeah, it is such a powerful sort of type scene from that game. Yeah, so good. Well, the entire season that game, Life is Strange 1, is phenomenal for mental health, but especially that scene. Episode 3 of Mogwai breaks my heart all the time. Anyway, we digress. We digress. I digress a lot.
Just a constant state of digress.
This is me every time with every episode of my favorite game or doing something like this, so it's not exactly new. If you have any questions for me and Alanna, please by all means drop them in the Discord, on the NIGDN Discord, or you can drop them in the Twitch chat. We have a few questions here we'll get to towards the end. So let's talk Toadhouse Games then. Specifically, Call Me Cera. In fact, we have the trailer here that we're going to play in the overlay. No sound though, because we have to hear Alanna. Sorry. I have to ask, is that your voice in the trailer?
I know, I hired voice actors. So, where did I do voice? I feel like I do, like, if we need, we have a trailer that has, what's it called for blind people, the audio descriptions. So I do those, like, I'll do the voice acting for, like, that type of stuff. But I figured I'm not a voice actor anymore, and there are people who desperately want to get in the door with voice acting. So why not hire the people who want to do the job? Pay them well.
I mean, like, it fits well for being an actor.
Right? I figure if there's a job that I don't want to do, and I can figure out a way to pile a bit of money together to hire someone who wants to do it, why not give them money to do what they want to do instead of me going like, oh, right, now I have to do the voice acting for this. All right, let's go. Yeah, so the voice actress for Cera, which is the main voiceover, is a woman named Nora. I think she goes by Nora Darling. And the therapist at the end is Lady Lecta. That's the two voice actors in the trailer.
I'm just going to play it one more time on the stream. So, how did Call Me Cera go about then? How did it come about then? Like, what was the sort of initial thought in your head about it?
Call Me Cera is legit a story about me moving to Austin.
It's semi-autobiographical.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it originally was more like a Night in the Woods narrative adventure game. It eventually delved into visual novel, which works for me because I love visual novels. So when I kept getting the feedback, this would be your greatest visual novel, I was like, what? My favorite genre? You got it. But it took place in Austin, complete with iconic Austin, Texas backgrounds. And I even went around Austin. I recorded soundscapes from like famous areas in Austin. But when I was writing the game and creating characters and such, it felt better as a northeastern town, because the Northeast tends to be a bit more diverse, and we have seasons, and I wanted the seasons to be, you know, poetic and represent things, and I wanted time to pass. And Texas is just summer and then less summer. There's no real seasons. It's summer and then it rains and then it's summer. It's also, you know, there's a lot of history in Texas that I would be remiss if I didn't explain in a diverse town like Austin in particular. Because of Jim Crow laws, there's a literal highway that divides the town into what used to be white and not white. So there was a lot that didn't add to the story but didn't feel right not including, and I wanted to do different things of it, so I put it back into the Northeast, not necessarily New York, maybe a bit more north of New York, in a fictional town called Fernvey. And Fernvey is the opposite of Wanderlust. It's like, it's not the opposite of Wanderlust, it's the opposite of homesickness, almost like Wanderlust. So I wanted it to be like homesick for a place you haven't been yet, so that it was almost like she's moving to this new town. I don't know, it makes sense in my head. But it's her spontaneously moving to a new town, getting a job, finding a therapist, and trying to make new friends. And that's exactly what I did. I legit, on my credit card, charged a moving truck and fled New York City because life was so bad there for a bit. And I figured if I have to be homeless, I might as well be homeless somewhere where it's warm. And I moved to Austin, Texas. And I figured I'd go do game dev stuff there. And I finally found a therapist, and I learned about boundaries, and mostly about healthy boundaries, but a lot of other things. And I wanted to share that knowledge somehow in a digestible way because it changed my life. And I figured well, Bendy's almost done. Let me make a game about it. And that's how that came into play. So it's legit the tools and such I learned in Austin as gameplay mechanics.
So, for those just joining us, Call Me Cera is, like Alanna said, basically your character just goes into a fictional town in northeast United States. Where would be around northeast anyway? Like, you're talking Connecticut,
Like
right?
New Hampshire. Yeah, a little bit. Maybe I always thought like New Hampshire,
Boston.
Boston, yeah, that area.
Well, I was going back to Boston, so no, I'm not gonna do it. I did it, and it was bad. And the thing that really sort of sticks out to me in terms of Call Me Cera is that you're trying to find these sorts of new relationships in this new town, but at the same time, as it says in the trailer, you can't force it either. And admittedly, that's something that I'm sort of coming to terms with a little bit as well. Like it's, call it a long delayed life lesson, as you will, but like.
No, there's a reason why the plot of the game is how to make friends as an adult. You are not alone. Like, it's not delayed at all. We're all learning it in like our 30s, 40s, 50s, how to handle this and not come on too strong and read the room. It's not even like people think, oh no, I'm bad at making friends. We're all bad at making friends. We're all bad boundaries. That's why I'm making the game. It's not just you.
Bloody hell, it feels like it this past year.
Yeah, but it's not. I promise it's not.
What I'm trying to get at is like, how do you sort of want to convey, like you say, we learn these things in our 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe even 60s, but how do we sort of try and convey those to people that may, how do I word this, who probably don't have so much of an understanding of the sort of conditions that we have with our mental health, or any neurodiverse sort of ways like autism and stuff like that there, that makes making friends hard, basically.
I think people need to accept others the way they are, and then decide if you want to be friends with that person. I feel like a lot of people try to change people or be like, well, I need them to do this or whatever, but you have to know your bit in it. You can't make people do things, and you can't change the way people are. So if you have a friend who's, for example, chronically late to everything, you say 6 o'clock, they show up at 8 p.m. Like, know that about that person and stop getting angry about it. Know that they will be 2 hours late no matter what. And if you want to do some weird thing where you tell them it starts at 4, so they show up at 6 or something like that, if that's how you deal with it, that's up to you. That's your choice. But know that that is how that person is, and don't get upset with them if they're consistently like that. If a person's consistently XYZ. Now, that's one example, but then let's say a person is consistently mean to you and you keep on going at them. That hurts my feelings when you mention, I don't know, my shoes are ugly. Stop mentioning my shoes are ugly. Anytime you say that I've got big feet, it hurts my feelings. Stop it, stop, stop it. And you let yourself, first of all, you have to tell them, because maybe they don't know. Maybe it's truly they think they're teasing you. They don't realize it's a sore spot. So
Yeah.
you communicate first. But if they're consistently showing you that they won't change their behavior if they upset you, and that they will constantly tease you about your feet, well, then your part in that is, do you want to be friends with that person or not? When it comes to things like autism, know that, like, you have to accept the people. It's not even making excuses. You have to accept them for how they are. So let's say, because autism it shows itself in an array of people. It's not just like one blueprint and every autistic person is this way. But let's say autism or whatever is going on with the person makes it so that they take things too literally, that they don't understand.
I'm guilty of that sometimes, yeah.
Fair. So, like, if you say something to them, they'll take it literally and they won't realize you're joking or whatever. Well, then I know that about person. So isn't it then, once I learn that, my responsibility, because I know that, so shouldn't I then understand with that person, I can't joke around that way, otherwise they'll take it the wrong way. Like, that's how that person is. So it's not up to the person to change it. And in the same way, that person, if that person in addition to the taking things literally, don't understand when I'm getting, they can't read my verbal cue of me getting upset. Like I hunch my shoulders and I look down and I get quiet. I might have to tell them that upset me, and then we might have have a conversation saying, well, when I'm upset I get quiet. So if you notice me getting quiet, maybe, consider you might have hurt me. And maybe we navigate it as they ask, like, hey, I noticed you're quiet. Did I do something to upset you? I'm not saying that you have to be like, oh, they're quiet. They obviously hate me. It's steps. It's communication. It's friendship. It's supposed to be a back and forth communication where, and maybe one day something upset you where typically it doesn't. Maybe one day you're very tired and normally you don't care if people tease you about your hair, but this particular day you woke up and you felt ugly and your hair's frizzy and someone just said that one thing that set you off and you're like, today no one talked to me about my hair. No one mentioned my hair. Don't even perceive my hair. Don't look at my hair. Don't look at my hair. If you communicate what you need in certain moments, true friends will accept you and accept that and go, right, all right, today no one look at Alanna's hair. I don't know what's going on. It's weird, I know, but like she's having a thing with her hair. Don't look at it. Don't mention it. It will hurt her feelings. And as a friend, I don't want to hurt your feelings, so I'm going to do what I need. But it's a back and forth. So I think that it's about acceptance and about communication. And we have to be better about those two things.
No, definitely. And I appreciate the fact that you mentioned those sorts of aspects about autism as well, because like they're very. Oh, I'm going to digress again, but I'm going to say it anyway. I've honestly sort of had to go on a journey this past year with my autism, of self-acceptance, and I won't go into it because this isn't the time or place or platform for it. But like, I feel like I am now in a place where I have a better understanding of my autism, and I hope that in that way that'll sort of help me be a better person, a better friend, and hopefully develop better relationships and better friendships down the line when I'm older or whatnot. Basically stuff like that there, that you're sort of trying to sort of attribute in Call Me Cera as well.
I agree, and I think it will. I honestly do. I went through something similar with bipolar disorder, where it was this big bad thing that was happening to me, and then I kind of eventually accepted it. And now it's just almost like the weather. Like, oh, well, today I've noticed that I have this strong urge to spend money on things I don't need, and I'm talking a mile a minute. Ooh, I might be manic. Great. So now that I know that I might be manic, I have a contingency plan. My partner takes my credit cards. I don't save my credit cards on my computer, so I can't just like, pop in a code or whatever. I have to manually put it in every single time. My partner takes my credit cards. I don't go to shopping malls because I have a tendency to overspend when I'm manic. I have a tendency to overthink. So if I need to have like a business meeting when I'm manic, I might say, hey, can we have this the next day or in 2 days time, knowing that I'm usually manic for like 2-3 days. And I know I won't sleep. So I'll get a book from the library, knowing that I'll be up all night and I'll need something to do. You kind of just make a plan for it. So if you know that you do certain things, instead of seeing it as a big bad thing about yourself that needs to be fixed, just be like, right, well, I'm feeling overwhelmed at this party. This symptom's acting up. Turns out this is too many people for me. Well, what do I need in this moment? What's the next best thing? Well, I need air and space and quiet. So I'm either going to put on noise canceling headphones, or I'm going to step out, or I'm going to go home and I'm going to take a bath because I came to this party. I got the credit. I'm done. I'm going to leave.
Good plans. Good plans. We stand good self-care.
That's the thing. Self-care is knowing yourself first, because how can you take care of something if you don't know yourself? So that self-acceptance will help you do self-care. It's not like, bubble baths and such. I know I use bubble baths as an example, but like self-care is knowing yourself and then knowing what you need most next. So for me, self-care is hiding my credit cards while I'm manic so that I don't go into debt.
Fair. That's right. Good self-care. Good. Like, here's the thing people should know about self-care. It's not just about treating yourself. That's sort of the positive I don't want to say toxic aspect of it, because like it is a good part of self-care, but it's also sort of part of that sort of rainbows and sunshines example I gave earlier in terms of this is the good part of mental health, but there's also sort of quote unquote bad side of self-care as well. There's no bad side, like quote unquote the bad self-care aspect is sort of like taking care of yourself, like actually getting in the shower, change your clothes and stuff like that there. I'm really bad at that, but I know I have to do it. So
It's also putting up good boundaries. So for example, and hopefully she doesn't see this, but I doubt she will. So my mother's not very tech savvy, and when people say, "Oh, what does your daughter do now?" She goes, "I don't know, something with computers, I think."
wow, do I relate with that a lot? Do I relate a lot with
works
that?
on computers. It's like, mommy, everyone works on computers now. Anyway, so my mother has a tendency to have a drink of wine after 8 p.m. So self-care for me is not answering my phone when my mother rings me after 8. Because when she's got drink in her, we tend to fight. So self-care is me not answering the phone after 8 p.m. unless she calls me 6 times in a row, and then I know someone's in the hospital or something's going on. But yeah, I don't pick up the phone for my mother after 8 p.m. knowing full well that it would probably cause a fight, and that is self-care. It's good boundaries. Well, I'll call her immediately the next morning. It's not that I'm ignoring her. It's that I set a boundary that I don't want to talk to her over the phone while she's tipsy because it's difficult for me to read the room.
Oh, totally fair. That's
Right?
good boundary, and yeah, that's good. That's good boundary. That's good self-care, and yeah, I think that's perfectly healthy. It's really healthy. So no.
Yeah, and it enables me to have a better relationship with my mother, which is kind of also what I was getting into with Call Me Cera and such. Sometimes good fences make good neighbors, right? So sometimes being a good friend is saying no, or sometimes being a good friend is saying you can't do that, that hurt my feelings, so you don't resent the person. Or sometimes being a good friend is doing what they don't want. Like if you've got a friend, for example, who has like a drinking problem and they ask you to go to the pub with them, go, I'm not going to do that with you because you're supposed to go to an AA meeting. You're not supposed to be at the pub right now. So no.
No, fair, totally fair.
And they'll hate you for it, but it's a good friend.
So on Call Me Cera then, specifically some of the vignettes that Toadhouse is making. You released the first one last month. Good Lookin Home Cookin.
It's doing very well.
Yes,
Very
I
well
was just
received.
about to ask, how is it doing?
Good. It's very well received. So far, the only people who ate it are Islamophobes, so I'm doing something right.
If you're pissing off the Islamophobes, you are doing something very good. Very, very
Right?
good.
I asked a group of devs, what do I do? I'm getting a lot of hate mail and Islamophobia, like just nonsense. How do I handle this? Is there like what do I do? And they said, make another game with another Muslim character. Do it again.
Yes. Yes.
But they're going well. We have another one coming out soon. I won't say when because it's not done yet, and I don't like to make promises I can't keep. But it's about Sophia. It's about a Chinese trans woman who runs an arcade with her brother. It all takes place in Fernvey in the same town, and it takes place a year before Call Me Cera. So you get to meet the locations and the people in Call Me Cera a year before Sarah arrives. So when you play Call Me Cera, you'll already know a lot of the locations and the people, and you'll get like little Easter eggs if you play the vignettes, but also you'll be in the heads of some of the characters. So you'll kind of know the type of vibe they like, so it will help you play Call Me Cera a bit more.
This is the one called Roll for Confidence, yes?
Yeah, Roll for Confidence.
Ah.
She makes a tabletop RPG character that is like the woman she wishes she was, like confident and self-assured, not afraid of confrontation. And she, at the Monday night tabletop night, plays this character, and then in her everyday life tries to like bring some of that role play into how she is. And so you get to see her go from kind of timid into something, more to what she wants to be, but also realizing that you don't need to completely change yourself. You can just be who you are. So like picking and choosing and acceptance.
Sort of developing that sort of self-confidence in her as well. No, absolutely. We stand self-confidence growth. We definitely do that. How many vignettes do you have in development? Like, at least in terms of four. Oh, four. Like the
Four.
mighty
So Good
four.
Lookin Home Cookin, Roll for Confidence. The one after that is called Cultivating Habits. Kenta, who is in Good Lookin Home Cookin, is the star of that one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about gardening and Kenta's he likes the like power and strength and independence he gets from making his own food. So it's kind of like that. And his story. And then the last one is Delightful Introductions, and that's Billy and Imani at the cafe.
So we obviously know that the vignettes will be tied to Call Me Cera. What do you hope these the vision? Getting tongue tied now. Love to see it. What do you sort of hope the aspirations of tying these four vignettes with Call Me Cera will be? Like, what sort of your aim game here to be with the four of them and Call Me Cera as the whole?
It's a couple of things. One, I realized after we went for funding that as a new studio, we have to prove ourselves. So I needed tangible proof to everyone of the type of games we make, that we make good quality games, and that you can trust us with heavy issues like mental health in a non-triggering way, and that I can write well and code well, and that they're good games. So it's 4 chances at a lesser risk for everyone to see that Call Me Cera is going to be a good game. 2, since Call Me Cera is about reading the room and making boundaries, and making friends, by already knowing the characters, it's almost like if you can't read a certain character, you can just go play their vignette and be like, oh, right, okay, so Jessica acts that way because she's a hothead. Lovely, now I know how to deal with her. So it's almost like an insight on how to play, almost like not a cheat code, but like a playbook on how to play the main game. 3, there's a lot of borrow words and cultural things that most people aren't familiar with in this fictional world. So I kind of have to spoon feed it to people. Otherwise it gets overwhelming. Like the towns and the locations, it was founded by Germans, so they're all German words. Like Weidensenkheid Park is Weidensenkheid Park, there we are, is a German word that kind of means forest solitude. It's that peaceful feeling you get when you're alone in nature and you feel like one with the universe. That's usually where characters go to have like inner monologue thoughts. But if you don't speak German, how do you know that? So I kind of have to show that in earlier games, so you know that for this game. Sundoku Cafe is a Japanese word. There's a lot of cultural things. Amira is Muslim, so you learn about her in certain games. But the most important part of doing it, I think, is that I don't want any of the characters to feel like token trans woman or token, this is just a token, a group of diverse, almost like an after school special of an 80s sitcom. I didn't want it to feel that way.
Or basically the Breakfast Club in a way.
Yeah. So if you have them have their side stories, you can address their differences in their side stories without having them to like tell their life story to Sarah. Because it's supposed to be a game about good boundaries. So why would Sophia be saying, hi, I'm Sophia, I'm a trans woman, to a person she just met? I would like it if in the main game I didn't even mention Sophia's trans, or I didn't even talk about Amira's Muslim identity or any of it. I would like to omit and avoid all of that and just focus on the friendship bit. But those are key aspects of those characters that people need to know and understand in order to understand them as characters. So by having vignettes that focus on them, I can address all of their background story and all of the things that make them tick in their vignettes, and then still have good boundaries when they talk to Sarah.
It's interesting as well that you mentioned you have these sort of 4 opportunities to show people who can provide funding to you. You have these 4 opportunities. What I find fascinating is that you actually wrote on the Toadhouse website a blog on which you were openly like sort of discussing how much Good Lookin Home Cookin cost. Like it was something like, and do correct me if I'm wrong here, it was something like $10,000 to make, right?
Yep, each vignette costs about $10,000 to make, and I make about $12,000 a year. So if you want to know, yeah, I'm not wealthy.
I think
I'm a disabled girl living in New York. I don't make much money.
I think we sort of ascertained that you're meant to not be rich when you're a game developer. You're certainly not meant to be rich when you're a journalist, anyway. But like,
Yeah.
I sort of want to discuss that transparency because obviously AAA, you're hardly going to be and that sort of transparency in a AAA or AA or even in a high indie level. How important was it to be that transparent?
Well, I had heart palpitations when I pressed publish, and then I almost deleted it immediately because I was so scared. I don't quite understand why it was so scary, but I I think it's important to be transparent, especially when it comes to costs. One, so people can see that even a small game to make costs a lot. Because I feel like gamers, there's a huge connect between game developers and gamers. Gamers don't realize the time, the resources, the money, and everything go into game. And there's a stereotype of like, well, why don't you just implement multiplayer over the weekend? It would be stupid easy if you weren't such a lazy game dev. They need to understand that the media that they consume is very expensive and it costs a lot. But I was, at the time when I wrote it, I was frustrated because part of what I try to do is pay everyone fairly. But how can I pay everyone fairly when it costs so much money to make and I'm not getting funding and I'm self-funded? So I was grappling with like, look, I am literally below the poverty line of where I'm living. And yet I still managed to pay my damn artists their fee. I still managed to get sensitivity readers. I still managed to pay cultural consultants. I still managed to do this right, and it was painful, but it was done right. And look at the good quality product we have. So you can't just, what's the word? Even a small short game like ours costs $10,000. It's expensive. So it was like this straddling of, we have zero money and it's all coming from me and this is painful, and yet I'm still trying to pay my artists fairly. And the post came out of this frustration of like, how are we meant to do this? How are we meant to make these good quality games and pay everyone a living wage and treat your artists correctly and get sensitivity readers and do all this? Look, I did all these things. I did everything I was supposed to. Look at how much I paid. I'm even telling you how much I paid for the logo, for this, for that. And all of these fees, yeah, they're on the lower end, but none of them are
Free.
tiny.
No.
Yeah, I didn't accept free work and I didn't pay, like I didn't what's the word, abuse anyone. I didn't take advantage of anyone. And even Kirk, our composer, when he originally came to me, he was a student, and he said, I'll do it for $50 a song. And I was like, that's criminal. No. And I was the one who said, you have to do it by minute. I can't afford much, and I'll have to do payment installments. But don't do per song, do per minute, and like I'll pay you this much and this much and this much. And I feel like I wanted to explain how much it costs. I wanted to give a role model, as I typically do. And I wanted to show that, like, even when you have nothing, you can still do it right. You can be transparent with your people and you can make it work via profit sharing or payment plans or something. To treat your people right, pay them at least something, and still make a good quality product.
Just out of sheer curiosity, I don't know if you can answer this. How much is Call Me Cera?
I don't have the number in front of me.
Okay.
A lot.
That's
Do you ever start to add things up and you get very overwhelmed and you practically yeet the notebook across?
not even joking. This happened to me last month. I'll tell you why once we're done here. But that literally gave me the biggest panic attack of my life. Like the almightiest panic attack. I will not lie. Oh my god. I feel you.
Right?
I will tell you what I mean when we're done here, but oh my god, I get it.
Yeah, I just threw the notebook and I haven't looked at it since. I don't remember the number, but I remember going, ah!
Go like, yep. I goes.
I'm trying to be smart about it, because another thing is that I'm reusing a lot of the assets. Not all of them, but a lot of the assets between the vignettes and Call Me Cera are same, so I can get 2 games out of certain assets. So I'm trying to be as savvy and cost effective as I can, being in the indie space. And even still, it's very hard. And then it's going to sound so stupid, and I hate saying this, but there is a kernel of truth to it. Being a woman making a game about mental health and friends, and a visual novel in Renpai at that, you're not going to get funding. They're looking for, like, and I don't blame them for it, but publishers want a return on their investment, and they're not easily convinced into taking risks. So unless you have like the next Fall Guys or something that they think is going to take the world by storm and they're going to really make bank on it, it's very difficult to get funding. Yeah, I guess that's that's what all in that thought there before I get too too salty. But like, how are we supposed to do this? It's very difficult.
No, definitely. Right, we'll have a few more questions here from my notebook, and then we'll jump into user questions. If you have any questions for Alanna, chuck them in Twitch chat or in the NIGDN Discord, which seems to be nothing but chaos right now, going by what's going on. But yeah, if you have any questions for us, please drop them in the Twitch chat and the NIGDN Discord. And by the way, Kirk is in the chat and he says, I was looking at that conversation just the other day.
Kirk is fantastic. If you need music, hire him. He's wonderful to work with, and he comes up, especially if you like classical sounding music for like, you know, beautiful orchestral music. He's very good at that. I loved working. Our music is honestly, like, at the end of the day, I love our game. I love the art. I love the music. I can stand by every design decision I made, and if everyone else hates it, fine. But like I said in the beginning of our chat, most often you're not so unique that no one else is thinking like you. So if I like it, there's bound to be someone else who likes it.
No, fair enough. By the way, we have another audience participant behind us. My dog. Looking out in the window. He won't be able to hear you though.
Hello, the baby. Oh, look at the little ears.
He's perking up, looking outside the window, looking for his friend, who's not there right now. He's not there anymore because he's actually gone off to well, he's gone off basically. He's not dead. He's just gone off on a little trip, let's say. He's missing his best friend. Right. 2 last questions and then we'll jump into the user questions. Right. There is an elephant in the room. Well, not so much an elephant as it's a worthwhile elephant in the room. Obviously the Palestine itch bundle. How's that going?
Good. I will have a big update later this afternoon. I'm hoping the bundle goes live by the weekend. And I'm hoping that the forum post with all the information goes live in a few hours. I have anxiety and there's a lot of moving bits. And so I need to make sure that everything is absolutely good, because I think I would die if like I made a mistake and I put it up public and someone caught whatever mistake, or I said something and then it turns out I can't do the thing I said. So I need everything to be like, right, are you absolutely certain that this is all good to go? Right, now I'll do it. So, hopefully soon.
I could see the literal representation of anxiety in front of me.
No, it's good. Like, I had a couple of people read over it, and everyone thinks what we're trying to do is a great idea. Basically, I'm trying to make it more than just your bundle. Because if you think of the Black Lives Matter bundle from last year on Itch, it did so much good. And I'd like to do something similar, but as I accidentally created this, as wonderful as it is and as supportive and lovely as everyone's has been thanking me and giving me all the praises, one, it's a group effort. If it was just my game, it wouldn't be nearly as impressive. So thanks to all the game devs like supporting and submitting their games and volunteering with their creations for this. But also, I don't want to be the center of it because I'm not Palestinian, and we're just in America helping. You know, oh well, it's global, but you know what I mean. I'm just
Yeah. I get
a woman in New York helping. So we wanted to make it so that it wasn't just like you know how sometimes it's very like white savior American coming in to save the day.
Yeah, that sort of savior complex.
Yeah, we didn't want that. So we came up with something, and I because the final like, no, absolutely, we are good, it is finalized, hasn't happened yet. My anxiety is preventing me from telling you. So it's not that it's not happening. It's more or less done. I just need the final like, no, we're good to go. and then it will be posted. So hopefully in like an hour or two, maybe 4-ish, but hopefully tonight I want it all up and ready.
Fantastic, fantastic. I need to say this. The BLM, like, its bundle was an absolutely fantastic bundle of games at a great price, for a massive worthwhile cause. I am absolutely certain this will be the same, and you will have my money, the first chance it's a bit. I say, give you your money, you'll know that day. It's obviously going to go to Palestine, worthwhile
Yeah.
efforts on that front. But you know what I mean when I say that. Um,
I
Hi.
actually chose the charity that it's going to because they have mental health services as well. They do food and medical assistance, but part of their medical assistance is mental health assistance. And that was important to me because what hurt me the most watching all those videos coming in is little kids, and it was a bit triggering for me because I recognize my PTSD symptoms in these children, and I'm like, oh shoot, I do that too. Oh, that girl's got PTSD now. I can see it. I do that symptom. And you can actively see these kids getting something that I hate having. So it just broke my heart. So I'm happy that we're donating the money to somewhere that will help them with that because my God, is that a terrible, annoying illness to have.
Um, I think we've all seen like what's been happening over the past 2, 3 weeks now, and what's happening between Palestine and Israel, and just being absolutely blown away by just how god awful it's been. And I think it's in these instances that we see the industry come together in such a massive. We seen it happen like over a year ago now with BLM, and now in the same way here with Palestine. What is it that you think helps sort of? Well, there's an obvious answer to this as well, but like I sort of want to get your take on this. Like, what do you think sort of helps drive the industry to come together? Because like for all the tribalism, for all the toxic elements of it, and for all the negative press that games somehow still seem to get somehow in some instances, we come together like no other, unite, band, and like help in a massive worldly cause, such as with BLM, such as with Palestine. Like, what is that you think sort of helps drives us together and sort of unite in this way?
Well, first, I'd want to say that with both Black Lives Matter and with what's going on in Palestine, it's a pity that it takes such a massive force of tragedy to have the help. Because with Black Lives Matter, I mean, that's hundreds of years old, what's going on there. And people have been mentioning the systemic racism of it for ages. So it's a tragedy, really, that it took what it took in order to get people to pay attention to it. And same with what's going on in Palestine. The last few weeks have been particularly bad with the airstrikes, but what's been going on there has been going on for ages as well. So it's unfortunate that it had to be such a massive loss of life for people to pay attention. But I think once people are paying attention, people who are in the game industry, they're not in it for the money. They're in it for the love of games, because there is no money. So I feel like we put a lot of love into what we create, and it feels good to have something that you've created with love help others. So they're more than willing when they're called upon for such an obvious cause, when something so tragic happens, that it makes everyone pay attention, because it's incredibly difficult to get everyone to pay attention to anything. So once everyone's paying attention and you can't ignore it any longer, it would make sense to me that particularly indie devs, any game dev, but particularly indie devs, because we do have a lot of heart, would then want to be like, right, well, I want to help. I don't know how. Here's what I have. I have no money. I have no land, but I have these little creations that I've made. And if that helps, then please, by all means, take my children and make them do good. Here you are. So I feel like it makes sense that once they're paying attention, I guess for me, it's annoying and heartbreaking that it takes such big tragedies for people to pay attention, because I'm not saying that you need to be worldly aware all the time, because there is a lot going on. It can be very overwhelming, but it's unfortunate that it takes such a massive loss of life, or such big, consistent, just one after the other tragedies, like with Black Lives Matter, to have people look outside their bubble and be like, right, no, there's stuff going on in the world that's bigger than me. Well, how can I help? You know?
No, definitely.
Mm.
Like Alanna says, hopefully we'll get details for the next few hours.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely be chucking money towards that for sure. Because if the Black Lives Matter bundle is definitely anything, this should be well worth throwing every single penny and cent towards, especially a worthwhile cause for absolute
We
certain.
have over 800 games and counting.
800 games, wow.
Over 800 and counting. Over 700 devs have donated so far, and we'll right now the Google form is on lockdown as we finalize this thing, but I'm setting up something a bit more organized and formal, because remember, I didn't, if I knew what would happen, I wouldn't have done this in a Google form. Like, how chaotic and unorganized to do it in a Google form that doesn't even ask everyone for their email. Oh my goodness, I asked for Twitter handles.
Oh, geez.
Didn't know. But yeah, I'll have something a bit more organized for everyone, hopefully by the end of the day.
800 games, 700 developers. That's how many was in for BLM? Was it like?
Oh, I think it was like 1,200 or something at the end of it. Like, it was quite a lot.
I mean, like, this is still quite a lot in itself. Anyway, I was just sort of wondering out loud.
But also remember, Black Lives Matter was run and started by Itch on Itch. This was just me accidentally. So like that was a much more organized and less chaotic, better situation. I've learned a lot.
I mean, like, you're still doing a good job with everything, all things considered. So
Yeah, that's true.
you should give yourself a pat on the back, especially considering the cause. Like,
Once it's all donated, I'll celebrate. But until then, I do feel like I've made a bit of a dog's breakfast.
you're doing a good job, Alanna. I promise you, you're doing a good job.
Thanks.
Finally then, before we throw the questions in chat, and again, if you have any questions for us, do throw them in Twitch chat or in the NIGDN Discord. So I will ask them in a few minutes. Finally then, I guess we could have asked this earlier, like we could have talked about this earlier, but like, what do you think are your sort of overall hopes in terms of mental health in games, both from depiction in them and how you wish to represent it in your own games, in terms of, you know, the likes of Call Me Cera and the vignettes, and as an actual thing within the games industry? Because, like, I mentioned I did the talk about however long ago it was now. I found out that when I was putting that talk together, like, 31% of in UK games industry folks that were surveyed by trade body UK in the UK, 31% of people surveyed within their games industry census had either a mental health condition, a neurodiverse condition, or both within 12 months of that report. And the national average, the UK national average, is 17%. And so I want to get an idea of just sort of, it's a bit of a loaded two-part question, but again, like, I just sort of want to get your overall hopes of both mental health and games, not just in terms of how you want to depict them in your own games, but also how we can sort of do better in terms of mental health treatment within the games industry.
Expected crunch needs to go. People need to have a work-life balance. The fact that there's still students coming in saying, "Oh, but I'm passionate about it, so I will sleep at my desk," upsets me. There needs to be a work-life balance. It is work, and it is lovely work that you do, and it's great to feel passionate about it, and it's great to love your job. But you also need friends and family and vacations. I would love to see that happen. I'm hesitant to say, there's a certain word on the tip of my tongue that I want to say, but I don't want to be dragged into that discourse. So I'm not going to say it. But I hope that there's formalized method where people can ensure that they get proper treatment in the workplace. I don't know why therapy is still so stigmatized, because it's just a conversation with someone who knows tools, who can teach you tools. It's like going to the dentist. Everyone should do it every 6 months at least. I know that that's a whole another issue of how accessible it is and how expensive it is, but that's part of what I'm saying. It should be as accessible as going to the dentist, but then as an American, that's not really accessible right now either. So like, there's a lot of work to be done there. I would love it if, maybe not the next generation, but the following generation, if there's a person with bipolar disorder who's working at a cafe and is having a manic day or a low day, that it's so ubiquitous in gaming and in media that if they go, right, well, I've got bipolar disorder, have you ever played this game? It's kind of like that. And the person can go, oh yeah, I've played that game, right? So what, stockroom today? And it's just a simple, casual, almost like saying, well, I have the flu and I don't want to sneeze in anyone conversation, as opposed to like, you are going to kill everyone. As for those statistics, that kind of makes sense to me. And this is just my opinion, but thinking about it, I get why the game industry is so appealing to neurodiverse people.
Yeah, I should point out. Sorry to cut you off. I should point out as well. Another statistic I found was that and I'm sort of going off my head at this point, and my head can be a bit, but like, like autism made up for like 2%, tied for 2% between dyspraxia and autism in terms of the lowest number of people in terms of neurodiverse conditions that were surveyed in that census. However, I think I read that 3 to 4 times I can't mind the full statistic at this point. I would have to sort of go through my notes here. In terms of the actual sort of presentation, which is here somewhere. It's a good thing I'm actually on Mac and streaming this through PC, because then I would be having a problem. Basically, if I can find my... It says somewhere like there's 3 to 4 times more autistic people working in the games industry than any other sort of area in the UK workforce. 3 to 4 times more autistic people than any other workforce in the UK working in the games industry. That's a sort of an unbelievable stat for me.
I guess it's kind of like how most people who are career waitresses are outgoing instead of introverted. You know, like there's certain personality types that do well in certain positions. Like I can't last a very long time being a phone salesperson, like if I had to sell insurance or something, because the amount of energy it takes me to have to dial a phone, call a stranger, ask for their time, and ask them for money, it drains me real quick. Meanwhile, like an extroverted person who doesn't mind that so much could make a lot of money being a salesperson. I feel like in the game industry there's certain aspects of it that make it more hospitable to those with neurodivergence and autism in particular. Now, see, I don't know enough about autism to speak generally, but a lot of it's specialized. A lot of it has to do with like being in your own little space bubble and doing quiet work, whether it's programming or drawing or whatever your specialty is. A lot of it is done, you know, by yourself. It's also truncated and it's projects. So it's not like, you know, retail. I hated retail because you never sold out of anything. Like you were there, you sold a bunch of things, and the next day you restocked it and you did the same thing all over again. Like it was mental to me. I couldn't sorry, I shouldn't say that. It was oh goodness, I can't think of another word. I disliked how every day felt the same. And it did my head in. Meanwhile, game dev is better for me because there's a beginning, a middle, and end, and it's a project, and then it's done. So projects are better for me than tasks that I have to do every single day, like sales or like retail. And I feel like that could be something that's common for neurodiverse people because we like seeing like a nice package deal feels nice in your brain. So it having a bow at the end to mean like, right, that's done. Next thing. I feel like I can't be alone in that feeling good. And there's different aspects. So off the top of my head, I can't think, but I'm assuming that there's different aspects such as that appeal to neurodiverse people.
I'll just give you the full stats here, because now I have it pulled up. Like, 11% of those surveyed said it had a neurodivergent condition. The conditions that were surveyed in the census from UK included autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and dyspraxia. The highest ranking condition in the report was dyslexia at 6%. The lowest was tied between autism and dyspraxia at 2% each. In terms of survey, UK cited a survey that suggests that 16% of autistic people are in the full-time workforce, with the overall adult workforce at 56%. It goes on to say that the rates of autistic people working in the industry are somewhere between 3 to 4 times the rate in other employment sectors, at least in the UK. And in terms of the other mental health figures as well, like 31% of the UK games industry reported it had anxiety, depression over the course of 12 months, like I said. Writing was the highest ranking with anxiety with 44%, while QA was the highest ranking role in terms of depression with 30%. The lowest The lowest ranking was localization in both anxiety and depression with 14% in both categories. By seniority, those lower down the totem pole in junior roles were likely to declare mental health issues somewhere between 32 to 35% attributing anxiety and 25 to 27% tying their aware to depression. And I should clarify that what I mean by junior roles is something like those in junior roles and like those below even that, I would guess internships and stuff like that. But that's...
Is there a statistic that says if they had it before they entered the game industry? Is their industry giving it to them? Like, is it caused PTSD and depression caused by their job?
There was, as far as I can see, like there was no such condition. Like, well, that's no such condition, but like there was no such info. I don't know if it was asked or not. These were just sort of what I found that was sort of prevalent to the article. You know what? I'll send you the report after we're done here to sort of give you an idea. And and here's another bit as well that I'll just mention in addition to it. Straight people are less likely to encounter mental health problems than queer ID folks. 20% of straight people surveyed had anxiety and 15% with depression. In contrast, anyone identifying as anything but straight have higher numbers. 47% of bisexual ID people had anxiety, while 41% said it had depression. 31% of lesbian and gay ID people surveyed said they had anxiety, with depression coming in at 27%. And trans people have a higher total of anxiety and depression at 55% in both categories, compared to 24% and 19% in anxiety and depression for cisgender respondents.
Goodness, we're failing them. Gosh. That sounds like as an industry we're failing people and we're not making them feel comfortable and welcome. Do you think that has to do with the roots of the beginning origins of the industry of like the good old boys club and how meetings used to happen in strip clubs and crap like that?
Maybe. I think there is a mentality of that that's still prevalent, for sure. But I do think, at least I can't speak for anywhere else in the world, but I can speak for in terms of the UK side, that it is starting to sort of progress, albeit very, very, very slowly at least. But that's just my opinion anyway, at least.
Yes. That paints a bleak picture of our industry, doesn't it?
It does. And I wonder how we can actually actively fix it. Obviously, crunch, gone. That's a start, but that feels like at the same time bare minimum. How can we go about fixing it?
Yes, I don't know. I don't know.
I realize that's such a heavy loaded question to ask, but that's all you can ask, really. Like, how can you go about fixing so broken to the best of your ability and help those coming up across the industry?
I don't know. I don't know. Oh God, I don't know. I'd have to. Oh, yeah, I have to find the root cause, right? So, oh God, I'm dizzy. That was a lot of numbers. So,
Sorry.
No, you're grand. I just, I don't know. Like, I knew it was bad, but when you're given numbers just one after the other of how, oh, I really feel dizzy. Well, you have to figure out the root cause. Obviously, crunch isn't the only thing. So it's kind of like what I was saying before. Everyone wants to be accepted and loved, and if not, then that's when, you know, you generally just are upset day to day, and then it can lead to other things. So if I'm not saying you need to be friends with everyone in your workplace, and I'm not saying it needs to even be like this, like I don't know how to phrase it, like work is work, and that's good. It should stay work is work. You know, maybe it does have to do with the balance. Like if you're at work and work is work, and you can't be yourself at work, either fear of being fired or discriminated against or what have you, and you're mostly at work because the industry is exploitative and doesn't let you go home and have a family, and doesn't pay you enough to have a family, and doesn't pay you enough to have your own home, and you're being forced to work long hours, like, it makes sense to me. Oh goodness, how to fix it? I mean, all right, so I can only do what I can do, right? So my studio, right? So my studio is very diverse. So that's part of it, because by having more types of voices at the table, you feel more comfortable calling bad shit out. So if someone says something ignorant or says something hurtful, it's not necessarily up to that person to be like, hey, that hurt my feelings. It's diverse enough that another person would be like, hey, that wasn't cool to say. You don't need to say that here. And so it's not an extra burden upon whoever it is. Like if someone were to say something, I don't know, everyone who works with me is lovely and educates themselves and such, but you know, people come with different baggage. So let's say I were to say something racist and I didn't know it was, like, I didn't mean to be racist, but I said it anyway. I hope that the people I work with and the people that I've hired to work with me feel comfortable, even if it's just DMing me, even if they don't want to do it like at the meeting, but maybe after the meeting going, hey, you know, when you said XYZ, just so you know, that's, you know, it sounds ignorant. I know you're not an ignorant person, but that's, you shouldn't really say that. You should do this. Or in a meeting, if someone calls someone the wrong pronouns, for someone to just be like they, them. And then instantly everyone knows what that means, and then swap to they, them. So I feel like hiring more diverse people, so it's not on the person, so that you're not adding to their depression and anxiety, that they also have to be their own self-advocates. Not having crunch, paying them well. But beyond those basic things, goodness, I don't know. That's all I can come up with.
I mean, it's a start. It's a start. It's something. At least that's better than nothing, though. That's a start. It's progress. I say that like sort of fancy. Like,
what would you do? Let's put you on the spot. How do we fix the industry, Johnny?
I'm not a developer. I don't know.
I want a white page on this in 10 minutes on my desk. Go.
Oh, this is me reaping. Ha ha ha. This is me sowing. Oh no.
Oh my god. I don't know.
I like that. I think personally speaking, like this is my sort of perspective from it. Obviously, in terms of, I don't want to speak for every single developer because I am not a developer, but obviously crunch has to go. It has to go. It's because at least then you need that element of separation in terms of once it hits, let's say 9 to 5. Once it hits 5, that's it. Clock off home, dinner, spend time with the family. and having that little bit of time for yourself, because there needs to be that separation of boundary at least.
Mm-hmm.
And I think more care towards people's mental health, because like there's that sort of age old saying of broken legs and how and stuff like that. There, like we should treat mental health in the same way that we would treat a physical injury, like a broken leg.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
like, admittedly, these are two things, but and I say that as someone who, one, is not a developer, but two, is very guilty in sort of overworking, and three, because I overwork, because like I sort of help get away from my own sort of mental health stuff as well. So an element of this feels very hypocritical of me. But in terms of, those sorts of things, I would definitely say eliminate crunch, have more sort of care towards mental health, and have those sort of boundaries between life and work, like that you alluded to earlier. But
Yeah.
that's just my thoughts.
I think that's a good beginning.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
it's only a beginning, so oh
It's
God.
a beginning. It's there's never going to be an end, but at least we have a beginning at least.
You know what's terrible? What came to my mind when I was listening to you speak is, yes, you should treat it like a broken leg, as you're saying, but then in my American head, it was like, yeah, but if I got a broken leg, my boss would be like, right, so you'll be in an hour late? You're still coming to work though, right? You're just like, how long will it take the cast to dry? I don't understand. Are you telling me
Oh,
you're going to be a bit late? Like, so I don't even know if it's just our industry. I feel like it's all broken. It all just needs to be burned down and started over.
that's probably the only other option. Just go full nuclear and start over.
Right? I don't know what else to say. All I know is that this whole thing's made me very dizzy and I need more tea. That's how I feel. Final answer.
The final answer. Are you sure it's your final answer?
Yes, I am dizzy and I need more tea.
You've just won £1 million.
Yay! I can
Da-da-da.
finally pay my people AAA wages.
Chris Tennant hands you a check. It's Jeremy Clarkson now.
Oh,
Right. Now that we've sort of gone through that sort of cactus sort of haze feel of sorts, let's delve into some questions. If you have questions for me and Alanna, well, especially Alanna, by all means, throw them in the Twitch chat, and also as well in the NIGDN Discord as well. We have a few here already that came in earlier. So this is the first one from the Game Jammer. Would you have much to say about the discourse regarding Wholesome Games then? Now, to give context, Wholesome Direct just announced happening June the 12th, and that's going to feature a bunch of games, including, to give an NI note on, Amber Isle from Ambertail Games, Jordan Bradley, and Noel Waters. Be sure to look out for that. For them, that is looking potentially awesome. For now, though, there was... I didn't even see this myself. It was alluded to on Twitter, but like people got upset about the fact that there was this sort of showcase for Wholesome Games. Like,
people were upset that. See, I think it's such a silly thing to argue about that I'm not going to say their argument correctly, but they're upset that they feel like Wholesome Games is selling now. So they need to make Wholesome Games, and they're apparently feeling pressure to make their games more wholesome. Also, part of the criteria for Wholesome Games was accurate, diverse cast representation, and people felt a certain way about that. I feel like there's so much more going on in the world to spend my time on. It's such a silly thing. Like, no one's asking you to make your horror game wholesome.
no.
The Wholesome Direct is not run by any sponsors or anything. It's run by a very, very small, hardworking team of people who want more wholesome games. and it is a market and people like it, but it doesn't need to, you don't need to be part of that market, just like I don't need to make first person shooters. And that's how I feel about that. I feel like it's a non-argument and a non-issue. Not to brush off the person asking the question, but honestly, I feel like the discourse is non-discourse.
No, fair enough. Absolutely. And like last year's Wholesome Direct and the few sort of showcases they've done after that, like, was generally the highlight of last year's sort of E3 period. Even though there was no E3 last year, there will be a E3 this year. But like, it was such a wonderful, wholesome type thing. It was the moment of that summer anyway, of that sort of E3 Summer Game Fest sort of type thing. Like, it was genuinely the biggest highlight for me, and I cannot wait to see what they've got cooking up for the Wholesome Direct this year, especially that they've got Amber Isle and Ambertail in there. Good luck to you guys if you're watching. So, any more questions? From Jack Mac, what are some areas, aspects of mental health or mental illness that haven't been explored in games yet?
Repeat that once more. Sorry. What's some areas?
What are some areas or aspects of mental health or mental illness that haven't been explored in games yet?
Well, I can't think of a character as bipolar disorder that they do it right. And I get it, because Sarah was originally going to have bipolar. She has anxiety, but I originally had her as bipolar disorder, and I was like, God, this is hard. So changed it to anxiety. I think before representation of a certain illness, to be honest with you, I'd prefer something more universal, like what I'm doing with Call Me Cera and showing therapy. Like, Sarah attends therapy, and it's very much like a therapy session. I feel like going to see a therapist is kind of like seeing a dentist. And I don't know why, when you ask someone like, oh, why don't you go to therapy about it, they get very offended. So I feel like more general would benefit everyone in the population. Mental health stuff needs to happen before we have like a very accurate representation of bipolar disorder or something. So just people casually and generally talking about therapy, and have it be like imagine if Duke Nukem was just like, yeah, so last week I got some groceries, I got some bubble gum, I went to my therapist, and then I kicked some butt because I ran out of bubble gum. Like, that, not saying that that's great writing, but like, if we, it's kind of like the same with the wholesome discourse, to be honest. Like, there's this weird thing of therapy, wholesome games, whatever. There's this like fear of being soft, almost like it makes you weak, which I find interesting, because if you're soft, the punch is the same. It's just how you take it.
It just feels a lot more toxic in that regard, anyway.
Yeah, so I feel like if we could get off this whole like soft snowflake thing and realize that no matter how much you ignore it, you're a human with emotions, and you need to address those emotions. And whether you want to take your toxicity out on others, or if you want to actually do something about it, being an adult is taking responsibility for your actions and therefore doing something about it. And it's not soft, it's smart. So do that instead. So I feel like game industry and everyone, more general mental wellness discourse. And then once that's situated, we can talk about, like, you know what we haven't had yet, a bipolar superhero or whatever, you know?
As Kitty elegantly put it in the chat, just, and to sort of add on top of that, to what you just said, being kind, soft, sentient trash bags.
Yes, I am the kindest, softest, sentient trash bag.
Last call for any questions for Alanna. I say that as if I have the most funfair voice, like I'm saying this over a ride, and I have that experience with the funfair as well. Like, last call for any questions, any more takers, any more? No, I'm not going to do that.
I have to say, it's so nice to do an interview with an Irish person, because every time an Irish person says my name, because they say it correctly just by default, my ears get happy. Usually I do interviews with Americans. Alanna, or Alanna. Alanna, any more questions for Alanna? Yeah, it's me. I guess.
And I just sort of slipped into that sort of funfair mentality for myself because my family actually runs a funfair, so it's actually fun.
Where do they? Do you get free tickets?
How do you not know that? I thought I would have told you that.
No, I love fun fairs. Will you hit me up? I want tickets.
Come back to Ireland. Come to Derry at some point, and I'll sort you.
I'd be happy to. I want to go to the fair. I love fun fair.
I thought you would have known that.
Oh, I want to go. Oh, I'll definitely visit Derry.
Right. I think this will be the last question, and assuming that there's not anything on Twitch chat or Discord. Last question from Mal Duffin. Hi, Mal. Great stream, and Johnny, thank you. You think that as you chat to more publishers, one might place support for mental health representation in games over profits and help and fund and promote one of your future games?
That's difficult because that's not the job of a publisher. That's not what they do. Indie funds and angel investors, for example, I have to ask him if I can say his name. So there's one prominent person in the indie game sphere who was very kind and listened while I was getting funding. I was complaining about what I was going through and I was very stressed out one day, and he listened, gave me some advice. And then he said, basically, like, women don't get funding often. Women making Grandpa visual novels don't get funding often. Mental illness doesn't get funding often. I want to fund your game. And he gave me $3,000 USD, no questions asked, no needing to refund him, no asking for anything in return, nothing like that. I awkwardly accepted it and then was like weird around him for a month because I was so grateful isn't strong enough for word. Like that, I got Lookin Home Cooking out the door on time because of that money. Like it's thanks to him that the art finally got to, like, and the trailer that funded the trailer. Like I made that money spread. Like that money went a long way, and I wish that I was more eloquent when it comes to money, because money makes me very awkward, because when you don't have any and then all of a sudden you start dealing with it, you get weird. And I wish I wasn't like that, and I wish I was better about it, because that's part of the problem as well. And I have to ask him, like, if people ask me who the angel investor is, can I say your name? Do you not want credit? I don't know how to handle this, because I want to be respectful and polite, because I so appreciate him doing it. But I feel like it's going to be more like that, like angel investors and people, other devs who have done well, have a bit of money, and want to give back. So the only thing that he asked of me was that I pass it on in return when I become successful, and I absolutely will. And I'll ask the same for others. Nothing back except for when you become successful to pass it on. So hopefully, like, that type of a deal, as well as maybe like the funds. So like Wings, Indie Fund, those, although they do ask, I think, for their money back. I think that's how games like mine get funded. But a publisher, no, that's not their job, and I don't fault them for it.
Just out of curiosity, like you said that $3,000 like got Good Lookin Home Cooking out the door like last month. Like, how long would it have taken if you sort of had to push it? Like, if you didn't get that 3,000?
I make about $1,000 a month.
So you're looking at about 3 months, basically. An extra 3 months.
Well, remember, I also need to eat and pay rent.
Okay, true.
So I put as much towards that as, so probably another 6 months or so. Okay. And then probably another 6 months after that for the next one, and 6 months after that for the, like, you know, it's really the kind, like, that got us in such a good place. It paid for the initial lawyer stuff. It set us up, basically. It paid for the initial lawyer contracts, which then I have reused a million times over. And I am very transparent with everyone I work with. I go, right, I have no money. Here, I'll obviously pay your fee, but could you make this as generic as possible so that I can use it over and over and over again? And same with the art, same with, like, the music from the vignettes is also the music in Call Me Cera. And the art from the vignettes is also, for the most part, the art in Call Me Cera, with obviously like special scenes and such, like the Ramadan scene from Good Lookin Home Cookin isn't in Call Me Cera. That was specifically made for that game. And I try to do it in a way where it doesn't get old and it doesn't feel cheap. But you know, it's what you have to do. You have to get creative when you don't have much. But it also paid for the animation was over 65 hours of animation for that trailer. But that trailer is going to play at the end of every single vignette as well as on YouTube. We don't have a marketing budget, so that's basically that. So that trailer I was like what 1400, 1600, something like that. Like the majority of the $3,000 went to the lawyer and the trailer and then finishing up the art. And then my artist, my musician and all them, they've been very good about me doing payment plans. So rather than big lumps of sum, I'll say, right, I'll pay you X amount each month over the next 6 months. So you have to be really good at budgeting and producing, minding your money. But also like, because it's just coming from me, if I wanted to, for example, like go get my nails done, that's $20 that I can't, or like little things like that where you make the game instead of like little life luxuries. It'd be nice to, you know, get a fancy coffee at a cafe. Not that you could because of the pandemic, but you know, like it's little sacrifices plus angel investments and that type of a deal.
It's that sort of double-edged sword in terms of treat yourself, but also I have to look after my dev team as well, which is also responsible as well, which is also a lot more responsible.
I have absolutely seen a beautiful dress and have even said to my partner, instead of like, this costs X amount, I'd be like, this is 2 sprites. This dress costs 2 sprites. This dress costs 1 sound. This dress costs 1 song. I can't get this game. It costs 2 backgrounds. You know what I mean? Like that's how I live my life now. I can't. It doesn't cost money to me anymore. It costs me what I need for my game.
If only we could sort of financially look at that from a sort of normalized sort of standpoint, like, this TV cost me. Oh no, that's a bad example. That's a bad example.
No,
but
yeah, this TV cost me 6 backgrounds. Do I want 6 more backgrounds, unique backgrounds for Call Me Cera, or do I want this telly?
That's an incredible way to look at things. I might just actually steal that now, just from here on out. Even though I'm not going to be using it for sort of game dev, I'm just going to look at it sort of. This will pay for one. This may pay for 1 piece. This may pay for 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. I'm actually going to steal that.
I don't know if it's healthy, but it's yours to steal if you like it.
May not be healthy, but it
does work. Because you tend to separate your money, but when it's coming from the same thing, you have to think of it. Do I want the Ramadan backgrounds, or do I want this dress? Oh, but the Ramadan background would make the game so much better. I want the Ramadan. I'm going to get the background. Let's get the CG.
Let's get the background. Let's get the CG. Yeah! Right. I think that'll wrap it up. Oh my god, we've gone 2 hours. I honestly thought that we would go an hour, a little over an hour. We've gone a little over 2 hours. And I cannot believe that. But it's been a fun 2 hours. And it's just genuinely been wonderful catching up with Alanna again. And Alanna, where can people find you and Toadhouse? And Call Me Cera as well. And good Lookin Home Cookin, all that good stuff.
Thank you. So on Twitter, you'll find me at Tybawai. It's TYBAWAI. That's me. You can find our community at Team Toadhouse on Twitter. We're also on Instagram. I think it's team_Toadhouse on Instagram. Please join our Discord. Our Discord link is, if you go to Twitter and you look up Team Toadhouse, it's the website link is our Discord invite. There's also teamtoadhouse.com that has all the information about the games. There's also a Discord invite there. For Toadhouse Games, it's at Toadhouse Games on Twitter. We have in our Team Toadhouse Discord a section for Toadhouse Games, so that's all one and the same. And you can buy our games on itch, which is Team Toadhouse on itch. And Call Me Cera is currently wishlistable on Steam. So it's Cera is CERA. So Call Me Cera, wishlist it on Steam. Wishlisting, retweeting, liking, and telling your friends. It costs you nothing, and it means so much to us. If all of you just tell one friend about Toadhouse Games, Team Toadhouse, Good Looking Home Cooking. We also have community copies. So they're free copies that the more games that are bought, we add to the community pile. So if you can't afford the game, we're not even asking for money. We're asking you to spread the word, play our games. That's all I want.
Good. That's a good incentive. That's a really good. I mean, I don't know what else to add, but that's a good incentive.
Oh, we also give a portion of all our profits to to charities that benefit the characters that we represent. So, for example, our next game, because it centers around a trans woman, we're going to be giving a portion of those profits to trans benefiting charity. The last one, the main characters, one was of Korean descent and one was of Muslim descent. So we split it 50-50. That part of the profits go to charities that benefit Asian Americans and a charity that benefits Muslim Americans. So even just by buying our game, you're giving community copies and you're giving charity profits. But like I said, we have community copies if you, for whatever reason, either can't afford or don't want to pay for it.
Awesome. That is genuinely awesome. And for me, you can follow me on @JohnnyClone on Twitter, and Play Diaries, playdiaries.com, Twitter @PlayDiaries, Facebook.com/PlayDiaries. There's also a Play Diaries Instagram as well, but that is basically gathering dust as far as I know. But yes, playdiaries.com, @PlayDiaries on Twitter, and Facebook.com/PlayDiaries on Facebook, and me on Twitter @JohnnyClone. Alanna, this has been a lot of fun. Really stupidly fun, really stupidly insightful, and just a whole lot of fun. There's not much else that can be said other than that. So thank you so much for doing this, especially for 2 hours. I only thought this was only going to go at least an hour, a little over an hour. Over 2 hours?
That's
fun time.
When you get two Irish people chatting over a cuppa. Like,
exactly!
It's gone on for a long time.
How's that Barry's tea, by the way?
Just finished it. So perfect timing. Perfect
timing. And on that bombshell, we thank you for joining us, and we will see. Oh, by the way, because I'm an idiot, of course. NIGDN and NI Game Dev Network, of course. Please follow them, of course. Join the Discord @NI Game Dev on Twitter. All the Discord details will be on the Twitter as well. Other than that, we thank you again for watching, and we will see you for the next one. Pester Keelan for whenever that's going to happen. Until then, we shall see you for the next one. Bye bye.
Thanks for having me.
I forgot the thing. More spring, I don't know how much our audience has gone down yet. More spring festival stuff. We're back again. More spring festival stuff happening on Thursday, because I'm an idiot and I forgot to mention this. I've not been asked by Keelan to mention this. I'm just doing this out of my own sort of thing because I forgot. Thursday. Leela is running. Leela Collins is running a brand new industry meetup over breakfast. That is happening this Thursday on the NIGDN Discord at 10 AM. So if you want to go in, talk with Leela about what you're working on, stuff and like that there. NDA stuff obviously pending and all that there. Feel free to jump into the Discord this Thursday from 10 AM. And then James and Lisa are hosting their social Friday night hangout, where we get to celebrate the end of the week with games, have the crack, and a few drinks in our monthly sort of hangout. So Lisa and James are sort of throwing that together on Friday night. So Friday night hangout, Thursday join Lila for Lean Coffee at 10 AM. Now we're going to go for real. Thanks again for watching. Sorry for our sort of frantic sort of mind thing. We'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.